At 2 in the morning, a small electronic melody announces a heavy glass door sliding open. Inside, a teenager in a school winter coat stands under brilliant fluorescent lights, quietly eating a triangle of cold rice while the city sleeps. It is late November in Seoul. The winter air here carries a specific kind of sharp cold that finds its way through your coat and settles deep inside your bones. The wind, blowing off the dark waters of the Han River, bites at your face and forces you to keep your head down as you walk. The steep, hilly streets of this neighborhood have finally emptied out. The glowing red neon crosses of the rooftop churches seem to float against the pitch-black sky, and the only sound is the low, distant hum of a late-night delivery motorcycle. But on almost every corner at the bottom of every steep alleyway, there is a box of light. It pours out onto the freezing pavement in a perfect, welcoming rectangle. We step inside, and immediately, the bitter, freezing wind is replaced by artificial warmth and the steady, quiet drone of refrigerator compressors. A young man with dark circles under his eyes sits alone at a narrow wooden counter facing the street window. He is blowing on a steaming cup of spicy instant noodles. 2 aisles over, an office worker in a wrinkled gray suit is slowly comparing canned coffees. Neither of them speaks. They do not look at each other. They are sharing the exact same bright, quiet sanctuary in the middle of the night. This is the modern heart of South Korea, a place of endless speed, crushing pressure, and quiet, softly lit corners where the lonely find a momentary pause. Welcome to Culture Journey. Tonight, we are walking through the glowing nocturnal landscape of South Korea to explore a uniquely modern sanctuary. We aren't looking at grand palaces or ancient temples. We are looking at the convenience store and the profound loneliness hiding inside its brightest lights. Here they call it the Pyeonuijeom. To understand modern Korea, you do not need to look at the grand ancient palaces or the towering glass corporate headquarters that define the skyline. You just need to sit by the window of a corner store at midnight. This is not just a place to buy a quick drink or a cheap umbrella. For an entire generation, it has become a dining room, a private study space, a refuge, and a silent companion. South Korea is a culture historically built on deep communal bonds and shared meals, but rapid economic change has birthed a totally new reality. We are going to explore the quiet isolation hiding behind the brightest lights of the city and discover how human connection adapts when the world moves entirely too fast. Walk with me through the sliding glass doors of a store in the busy district of Gangnam. It is 7 in the evening. The transition from the chaotic, noisy street to the interior is instant and jarring. Outside, there is the roar of traffic, the shouting of street vendors, the endless movement of millions of people rushing home. Inside, the air is still. The shelves are packed with an almost overwhelming geometry of bright color. Rows of pastel banana milk cartons stand perfectly aligned. Glossy boxes of sweet pastries are stacked with mathematical precision. The savory, rich smell of fish cakes simmering in a metal vat of soy broth drifts from the register. The store is tiny but deeply organized. An older woman behind the counter greets every single customer with the exact same high-pitched, rhythmic welcome, though her eyes look incredibly tired. Look at the people coming in and out. A university student carrying a backpack heavy with textbooks walks in. She buys a small triangle of rice wrapped in crispy seaweed and a highly caffeinated energy drink. She does not take it home to eat. She walks straight to the small wooden ledge by the front window. There are 3 other people sitting there. None of them are together. They are separated by invisible walls, staring out at the rush hour traffic while they chew in silence. In Korea, eating alone used to carry a heavy social stigma. This is a culture where food is historically meant to be shared from the same boiling central pots, a symbol of affection and unspoken connection that Koreans call jong. But the relentless rhythm of this hyper-competitive society has deeply reshaped that old tradition. The window seat of the convenience store is where that fracture becomes most visible. But this quiet isolation isn't just found on the busy streets of Gangnam. It follows us home. Let us step back out into the cold and walk toward a densely packed residential neighborhood where apartment buildings rise into the sky like endless concrete grids blocking out the stars. Inside those small, single-room apartments live the Honjok, the Solo tribe. This is a massive generation of young Koreans who have chosen or have been forced by harsh economic reality to abandon the traditional milestones of marriage and family. The housing prices in this city are astronomical. The job market is a brutal, unforgiving arena. So they live alone, they work late into the night, they study until dawn in small, cramped rooms, and when they are hungry, they do not cook. Cooking requires time, money, and energy they simply do not possess. They walk down the street to the glowing sign that never turns off. The convenience store is always waiting. It does not judge you for eating a frozen dinner at midnight. It does not ask why you are alone on a holiday. It just offers a bright, clean space and a cheap, warm meal. Watch the young man in the gray sweater carefully mixing mozzarella cheese and a cheap sausage into his microwave cup of spicy noodles. It is an absolute art form, a small personal ritual of comfort. He stirs it slowly, watching the steam rise into the cool air of the store. For these 10 quiet minutes, he is not a struggling job seeker. He is not a disappointment to his parents. He is just a person enjoying a warm bowl of food in a peaceful room. It is a profound sort of urban solitude. The light from the store makes his face glow in the dark window reflection. He is isolated, but in this space he is part of a silent, unspoken community of the lonely. If we travel just outside the center of Seoul to an older neighborhood, the texture of the streets begins to change. The alleys are narrower here. Tangled black power lines drape across the sky like spider webs. Here, the bright, modern convenience store sits right across the street from an old traditional market that is closed for the night. You can feel the heavy ghost of the past lingering in the shadows of the wooden stalls. Just a few generations ago, this entire country was rebuilding from absolute ruin and war. The older generation survived through intense collective effort. They leaned on each other for everything. Neighbors knew every detail of each other's lives. Doors were left unlocked. Meals were shared across property lines. Now the grandchildren of that struggling generation walk past the dark wooden stalls of the old market and step into the artificial daylight of the chain store. They buy prepackaged apples wrapped tightly in plastic and hard-boiled eggs sealed in vacuum pouches. The transition from an intense village community to total urban anonymity happened in just a few short decades. It was so fast that the culture itself is still aching from the whiplash. You can feel that ache in the silence of the store. It is almost a physical sensation, a quiet yearning for connection that is buried deeply under layers of exhaustion. People come here because it feels incredibly safe. There is always a worker present. There is always light. In a city of nearly 10 million people, the convenience store acts as a glowing lighthouse for the solitary traveler navigating a very dark and very fast world. The experience changes with the seasons, but the comfort remains exactly the same. Imagine a heavy summer monsoon rain, the kind of rain that hits the asphalt with a deafening rhythmic splashing sound. You are caught in the sudden downpour, and you run into the nearest store seeking shelter. You shake the water from your hair. The air inside smells of damp clothes and sweet brewing black coffee. You buy a cheap, transparent plastic umbrella and a pouch of sweet iced hazelnut coffee, pouring it over a plastic cup filled with perfectly round ice cubes. You stand by the window, holding the freezing plastic cup against your warm hands. Outside, the neon signs blur into streaks of red and blue in the wet glass. The light bleeds across the black puddles on the street. Someone else walks in dripping wet, shaking off their coat. You exchange a brief passing glance, a shared unspoken understanding of the weather. For a moment, the crushing loneliness of the city feels a little less sharp. The convenience store is a truly democratic space. Rich businessmen, construction workers, teenagers exhausted from late-night cram schools, and elderly grandmothers collecting cardboard. Everyone eventually ends up here, standing under the exact same fluorescent tubes, looking at the exact same rows of colorful snacks. It is the great equalizer of modern Korea, a shared waiting room where everyone is briefly escaping the elements, whether those elements are the torrential rain outside or the crushing expectations of their daily lives. Stay with me until the early hours of the morning. 3 a.m. The city has finally surrendered to sleep. The subway trains have stopped running beneath our feet. The only people awake are the taxi drivers, the night shift workers, and the chronic insomniacs. This is when the convenience store changes its character entirely. It stops being a place of rushing efficiency and becomes a weirdly intimate confessional space. A middle-aged man in a rumpled suit stumbles in through the sliding door. He smells strongly of cheap soju and roasted pork belly. He buys a large bottle of cold water and a small glass bottle of a medicinal hangover cure. He tries to chat with the young university student working the register. The student nods politely, scanning the items with a soft beep. The older man is not really looking for a conversation about his purchase. He just wants someone to talk to. Someone to acknowledge he exists before he goes home to an empty apartment. He lingers by the door, looking out at the completely empty street before finally wandering away into the darkness. Then a stray neighborhood cat wanders near the automatic door, waiting patiently for the store clerk to bring out a small tin of leftover fish. The clerks themselves are often living parallel lives of deep exhaustion. They are usually college students working through the night just to pay their tuition. They sit behind the counter, under the harsh, unblinking lights, reading thick textbooks, or watching lectures on their phones while the city sleeps. They are the unseen, quiet guardians of the Korean night. They watch the heartbreak, the drunkenness, the quiet despair, and the simple late-night hunger of their neighbors. If you ask them, they will tell you they see the true, authentic face of the city. Not the glossy, perfectly choreographed pop culture perfection exported to the rest of the world, but the tired, unguarded faces of everyday people just trying to make it to tomorrow. The sky outside the window is slowly beginning to turn a pale shade of gray. The morning buses are starting their engines in the distance, sending a low rumble through the pavement. The night is over, but the store remains open. It never closes. Its lights will stay on brightly as the sun rises over the mountains surrounding the city. We leave the window counter and walk back out into the chilly morning air. The electronic chime plays its little cheerful melody behind us as the door slides shut. When we look at the gleaming futuristic skyline of Seoul, we usually see a story of miraculous economic triumph. We see a society that raced forward into the future faster than almost any other in human history. But beneath that gleaming glass surface, inside the hundreds of thousands of brightly lit boxes scattered across the country, there is a different, softer story being told. It is a story about the heavy hidden cost of that incredible speed, about the quiet reality of moving forward alone in a crowded room. Yet there is a strange, beautiful dignity here too. In a world that demands absolute perfection and constant endless motion, these small spaces offer a gentle pause. They are warm. They are deeply dependable. They provide a space where a person can just sit, watch the rain fall, and eat a simple hot meal without ever having to explain themselves to anyone. The convenience store may be a monument to modern loneliness, but it is also a quiet testament to human endurance. It shows us how people will always find small comforts and carve out tiny moments of peace in a world that never ever stops demanding more. Thank you for walking through the night with me. If this journey made you feel something or brought back a quiet memory of your own solitary moments, I hope you will subscribe and join us for the next one. Please share your thoughts with me in the comments below. Take care of yourself, and let us keep exploring this beautiful, complicated world together.